Peace. Let me know if I can be heard. Am I loud and clear? You know. Peace, everyone. Great. Awesome. Good. It's weird being on this side. Okay, so give thanks. So I guess I'll just get started. So the movie that I am breaking down is called Soul of the Game. So this is about the transition from the Negro League to the Major League Baseball League for three specific players, which are Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige, and Josh Gibson. And so first, shout out to Brother Lowe and give thanks to Chief Yuya for allowing me to be in this space, and peace to my family. Give thanks. So, first of all, I'm not a sports person, so but I do like Afro history. So this was very interesting for me to do because sitting with Brother Lowe talking about the history and stuff, it was like a lesson. So if you haven't had the chance to sit and chat with Brother Lowe on some topic, like you should, because great resource and just full of knowledge. So okay, so I'll begin. So a couple of things about the Major League. Well, I'll just say one thing and then go as I go. So the Negro Baseball League was founded by Rube Foster in 1920. Now, I'm probably going to say this again, but the Negro League was integrated twice, once in the 1800s and then a second time in the 1920s. So let's begin. So a little bit of background about this film. You found some inspiration. Come on now. No, for real. Because 2 out of 3 of them actors are my favorites. So you're absolutely right about that, Chief. I agree. So a little bit of the history in the scene of this movie is this was taking place in World War II. So they were not in the European theater. They were in the Pacific theater. And what I mean by theater is where the war is happening. So that's what we use in the military. I'm not in the military. That's what they use in the military to describe like where they are within, their war. So they were in a specific theater of the war. And also, they were just coming out of the Great Depression as well. So, it was just a new kind of air. So the movie opens up with it's at the 1954 World Series, and you see a reporter talking to a baseball player. And so if you look a little bit closer at the player, you look at his locker name and you look at his number, you realize that this is the Willie Mays. So I've only heard of this name before, just the name, maybe like on February, that short month. But so a little bit of facts about Willie Mays is he did almost 22 seasons in his major league career with the New York, who later became the San Francisco Giants from 1954 to 1972. And then he went to the Mets for his last year. So you're having this reporter is having this conversation with Willie Mays about, how does it feel to be in the major leagues, and he talks about Jackie and Satchel. And one thing about this reporter, I realized he's there at every pivotal point of like each of the these players' careers in this film. He's like the historian almost, because when they're talking about it, he's like him and Willie are like, well, how does it feel to pave the way? With Jackie, how he came in, because he says, right, him and Satchel was on his team. And so the reporter was like, no, Jackie was on his team, and that was the problem. And so then the reporter goes on and says, well, it doesn't matter because Jackie got drafted first before Satchel. But then he says that, Satchel later goes on and says, well, he ended up getting drafted by the Indians anyway. I can't remember the team, Cincinnati, Chicago. It started with a C, but it was the Indians, and he ended up being Rookie of the Year. Now, mind you, Satchel Paige is an older player, so throughout this film, you'll hear his age is always brought up. At one point, he even lies about his age. But we'll get to that when we talk about it. So, and even the reporter says when they talk about Satchel, they were like, yeah, he became Rookie of the Year at 42. And then the reporter was like, yeah, in dog years. And I was like, ooh, shade. But his age becomes, a topic because, you have to have your bones. You got to have your body right when you do these, when you're in sports. Come on now. So they're always looking at, your health. And one thing I realized that correlates with the military is when you're in these kind of sports, your body is not your own. Like it's property. Cleveland Indians, give thanks. Cleveland. And so your body is not your own. So you're a machine. You're their, property. So they have to make sure they have to retire you, put you in the garage and let you just, yeah. So okay, let's turn these notes. So then we're flashed back to the 1945. When we were in a winter championship in the Dominican Republic in 1945. So one of the things I learned is that back in the day, baseball players, unlike now, I think they're the highest paying athletes to date, other than some international soccer. But so on their off, everybody was not really getting paid. White, black, Puerto Rican, Cuban, all of that. They just wasn't getting paid that much. So they played year round and just mixed teams, and they played in other countries. So this film opens up with them in the Dominican Republic. And what was really caught attention with this time is because the ruler of that time in 1945 was his name was Rafael Trujillo, and he reigned for 31 years in Dominican Republic, and he was really controversial because he was known to have killed over between 13,000 and 20,000 Haitians in something called the Parsley Massacre. So, it had these black players playing for him. It was a little weird. And even if you look in the on the field, you see soldiers lining it up. So it shows both how, militant he was, dangerous he was, or maybe he was just trying not to get assassinated. When you do wrong, you always on edge. So that makes sense. And we see that all the time in our history, So even Satchel was like, I don't know nothing that he's saying, but he got a little evil to him, just something wasn't sitting right in his, it just wasn't sitting right. So during this game, this is where we see, that Satchel and Josh Gibson. Josh Gibson is another player. He plays for the Homestead Grays. Sounds like Dangerous Mission. Haiti. Right, exactly. Sounds like a Dangerous Mission. Haiti and DR still have contention. Speak on it. So, but yeah, so you get to see that their friendship, and so, and even Joe Gibson, he plays for the Homestead Grays. He was telling hey man, don't showboat, just come on out here, do what we gotta do so we can get up out of here. Let's go home. We're not even on this land. This ain't us, So, of course, Satchel Paige showboats, taunts the batter. He taunts the batter. Oh my goodness. Or the swinger, the batter. And it's just really frustrating because, and then if you look in the crowd, you even see people in the stands, they have Satchel Paige up there, so it's not even because they're playing for the Dominican team because, again, they weren't getting paid much, so they got loaned out. So, here's your jersey for the day, so that's how that went. So Satchel strikes him out, and then he taunts him, spitting water around, little, whatever. And the pitcher gets mad, and it basically starts a riot and a celebration because a riot against San Juan, the team that they were playing, and celebration against with the Dominican Republican people. So, and so after that, we're brought to New York. It's still the same year, 1945, and we're introduced to a man named Wesley Branch Rickey. And so, one of the things about, oh, okay, here we go. Before I begin with about the story, one thing about Wesley Branch Rickey was he once was an American baseball player himself, and so he now was a sports executive, and so you see this a lot too. So retired baseball players become sports managers. Is it managers? Executives, sorry, sports executives. And then so they've played with, the Black players, and so they know what they're looking like when they're trying to formulate their team. So Wesley or Branch Rickey, I'm going to call him Ricky. Josh turned full pro at 18. He was like a LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal man-child type. He hit a ball almost 600 feet once. Super power hitter. And it's crazy that throughout the whole movie he was called big, you could tell he was a powerful force, how he was portrayed. Sounds like okay. I already said that. So okay, so when we meet Ricky or Branch Rickey, and he's wanting to what he's wanting to do, he wants to integrate the Brooklyn Dodgers, but he doesn't want to do it so outright because it's 1945 and you really got to be covert with stuff like that. So he does it under something he calls the Trojan horse or a guise by saying like he wants to recruit for the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers. I would love to have seen what that jersey looked like. Is it colored jersey, y'all? Okay, but so he wants to do the integrate and call it the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers, but he actually wants to recruit for the Dodgers. And he told everyone in the room, of course, his constituents were like, nah, we don't want to do that. And he was like, well, if y'all don't want to do that, y'all can step, basically. And nobody stepped. They were a little disgruntled, but it's they didn't step. So, and so what he wanted to do was he wanted to get a study or the characters of the players that he was looking to recruit. So each of his, associates were assigned to a specific player to look at and go to their games and stuff like that. Even one of the associates were like, well, regular white jersey, as far as I know. Okay, jersey, okay. And so he had them all like go out and, scout. There we go. There's the word, scout. So he wanted them to scout. And so he puts a young associate, specifically Steve, on Josh Gibson, to figure out like who he be, kind of thing, so because there were rumors, and I'll get to that a little bit moving on along. So we are back to the field. Also, like, comment, share. Thank you. Okay, so we're back on the field. And so in this next scene, we're at a game with the Kansas City Monarchs, and they're against the Homestead Grays. So if you recall, Josh Gibson, the man-child prodigy, LeBron James hitter, is on the Homestead Grays. I cannot remember where the Homestead Grays are. Brother Lowe, if you could tell me, or somebody could tell me where they're at. But it's the Homestead Grays. And so again, you get to see Satch really in his element. He's basically like, ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. I sell the records, basically, and so it even comes to the point where he just does it theatrical, like my stomach hurts. And he has somebody bring him milk. And that was weird because milk, especially back in the 1945s where the sanitation and food regulations were a little sketch. DC, okay, Homestead Grays, DC. So, but yeah, in a time where milk and food regulations were a little sketch, I wouldn't be drinking milk on a hot day like that. Like, it's just, anyway. So he goes, okay, yeah, so okay, yeah, so he was like, so during the showboating, when it was he specifically like ran the field, I think it's called, like filled the bases up, where everybody was on a base, because he specifically wanted to get Josh on the plate. Got it right, the plate. To hit, so he was talking all this jive, and so he told everybody to get off the field, out the outfield. Had to plug right. Okay, had to plug for the milk industry. That makes sense. That does make sense. Anyway, so he told everybody in the outfield. I had to look up these lingos for this breakdown. So he told everybody in the outfield to go on back in the dugout, go on back, don't even worry about it. And so then all of a sudden, Josh is like, what you gonna do about this youngin' right here? And you look back and you see Blair Underwood, who was played by Jackie Robinson, and he's just like disgusted. Like, you over here showboating, this is a game, like and that's where he pulled the ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis move on the brother. And so somebody had to come and get him off the field. And so lo and behold, when Satch throws this ball, brother man Josh, he hits it out the park. Like, he just hits it out the park. And then Satchel looks at him and is like, go get it. Jackie was like, no, you got it. No, you got it. That's all on you. That's all on you. So then it was Jackie's turn to play, okay? And so when this happened, and I believe so that at this time there was a recruiter or one of the people who were scouting out there too, looking at the game. So this was a time when they were able to see Jackie Robinson's speed. So, and I believe he was stealing bases. I could be absolutely wrong, but he was just like going for it. He was just meow, 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 meow. And so, yes, the recruiters were there. I did write that down. So they were there. So, and they were talking about his speed, like, whoa, you see that boy go? You know how they do. So after the game, we were in the locker room, and, they're doing locker room talk. And then, Satchel is like, they were talking about Jackie, like, oh, he don't know no better, he young, he a rookie, he'll get a law of the land, basically just being real. Well, he was the seniority in that thing, so, and even back at the field, they were like, his showboating pays your bills, or, so. Yeah. So a reporter comes in and, talks to Satchel a little bit, but then he looks over and sees Robinson, who's just minding his own business, getting dressed and stuff. And he was like, say, didn't you play at UCLA? And, and so then Jackie started saying like, yeah, I went to UCLA, then I was in the military. And then the reporter was like, you a sergeant. Now, mind you, this is the same reporter from the beginning. So this is the same reporter from 1954. This is the reporter saying he's in 1945 as well. So to me, I kind of saw like it was the reporter kind of telling the story. And I'll show you why because of the end. But so he was so he was like, yeah, he was just talking about, his military experience and all that kind of stuff. And then I believe it was talking about his stacks. Jackie Robinson was actually stationed with the boxer Joe Louis in the Army. There you go. Now you know. So yeah, the reporter takes a picture of Jackie, and I really see throughout the movie, he sure was. I forgot about that. Oh, so one thing I do realize again about this reporter is like when you see this reporter, it means that there's about to be some change in like popularity going on, because again, the media controls who's liked and media who controls like who's disliked, so he was like, I want to take a picture of you, brother. He didn't say brother, but he just looked like, wow, so and Jackie was a lieutenant, and you become a lieutenant because you go to school and then you can go through the officers program and become a lieutenant. So while this is all happening on the political side, like comment and share, the mayor is in the process of trying to integrate the major leagues himself. And he said if a black boy can go in the war, he can make it in. If he can make it in war, he can make it in baseball. And the thing, and let's just say, like, none of these folks was interested in integration for the good of the Black folks, just to let, because they belong there, because they're such, it's not that. It's always for gains. You see some talent, you want to monopolize on it, kind of what we see like today. So that's what was going on within the political realm, the mayor. So back on the field, we are at another baseball game. And so I think these Black brothers were managers. It was a guy who always plays like Gordy Berry or Barry Gordy in all this like Black shows or something like that. And they were talking about Josh Gibson's state of mind. They were talking about like he's always talking to himself, talking to people who aren't there, loud outbursts, just really just wow, And so one of the guys blames the lady he's with named Grace, who's actually married to a gangster. Jackie Robinson knows track 2. So, but yeah, so he blamed one of the executives blamed his girl Grace. Now, mind you, Grace is a married woman to she's a married woman, and so and that's actually true that Josh Gibson was messing with a married woman. Aside, the woman who played Grace in this film is the same woman who played Cousin Faith in Soul Food, and I find that she's kind of like doing the same things, and she has names like Faith and Grace in each of these roles. I just had to say that. I just had to say that. Maybe that's the message, but she's always having faith and grace, and she's anything but in those times. So so after they are this is when you cut to the next scene at the same game is when this is actually when Ricky puts Steve on the task too about Josh's health. He's like, hey, I've heard some rumors he was at a mental institution. Go ahead and figure that out for me, please. So yeah, see. I think that was out of order, but it's okay. So what happens is then we see, I forget which one happened first, but I'll just say it. So we then see Josh butt naked on the roof, and it looked like he was kind of sweating, but he just, his head was hurting, and he was like, what's wrong with me? And Grace was like, I was looking for you. And then she mentions her husband, and she was like, well, I just thought you were upset. I don't know why she mentioned her husband. I don't know, but he just did not want to go to the hospital, and he was just talking about the good old days. Meanwhile, Steve, the young associate, put on Josh's on his case, to scout him and figure out his background, his character, and what he does and stuff. He goes to the mental institution, and he tries to get the information out of, the nurse there. And she was like, oh, you noticed the sweat all over his body, huh? The sweat all over his body. Okay, all right, and scene. I gotta vet before I read. Didn't I post about vetting? Okay, don't worry, sis, just flow. You're sure. Okay, yeah, exactly. Okay. So he goes to the institution and he tries to get the information, but she's like, listen, confidentiality, unless you're a doctor or the patient himself, you can't go. So Steve was about to go back and call Ricky and say, I didn't get it, dog. They not letting me have the information, until he hears, black laughter, in the break room. And so then he goes trying to be cunning. And he was like, hey, guys, it's 2 black men orderlies. And he's like, can I get a phone book to, so I can call a cab? And they're like, oh, yeah, and so they're just sitting there eating, kikiing and stuff. So, well, men don't kiki, just chatting it up, eating their lunch. And so he tries to strike a conversation to get him to disclose information about Joe being Josh being there. And so he was like, yeah, he's been here, right? He tried to introduce it yeah, how about those homestead grays or something like that, whatever, right? And they're like, yeah, they're good, whatever. And so then he's like, yeah, so Josh has been here, right? And the brother was like literally, like brother, we like not even brother, like we know why you're here. They're like, you best go and call that cab now. And he would just look like egg on his face, literally, because like you can't be slick like that. And I just really thought that was, I don't know if that was a black camaraderie thing, or it's like, I'm not trying to lose my job giving out sensitive information, so you just can never tell what that was all about, So so we are then, back in the locker room, we are then switched like to the next day or another day when they're back in the locker room, and one of the players has a newspaper, and, Satchel comes in, and the player gives, Satch the newspaper, and it's Jackie's on the front, like, Jackie's on the front. Because the thing is, up and coming, Satchel in the eyes of, scouts and things is old. Gibson's situation was sad too. He actually had a brain tumor. Thanks, Chief. Thanks. He actually had a brain tumor, but never elected surgery, which was eventually his undoing. Of course, there were alcohol and drugs too. Yes. And I'm going to repeat the same thing again. Good, thanks, Chief. And yeah, so after I found out that he had a brain tumor, like I started replaying the movie again in my head, because he was literally a man trying to just be, and his brain was just like failing him because of that tumor. It was just like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? That tumor. And I can imagine that alcohol and drugs heightened those symptoms as well. So, but he was not trying to go to the doctors, right? Rightfully so. We know, what happens with the doctors with Black folks, especially during that time in the 1940s. So, but yeah, so back to, the locker room where Satch gets the newspaper and sees that Jackie's on the front. One of the players is like, oh, somebody look like somebody found him a good old white boy. They just started teasing him, because his paper's out of order. Probably. Nuts. Hold on. So yeah, he was like, you found yourself a good old white boy. And so basically, give me a second, guys. Back on the field. That's gone. Put that there. One moment, please. Please like, comment, and share while I get this together. Thanks. Okay, so he am I missing a page? Gives Mexico. Yes. Okay, so anyway, what had happened was, after that happened, in the locker room, give me 3 seconds. Right, so Jackie attacks the brother. Like, he attacks him because he just basically called him houseboy. Like, he's calling him all these things, and so he attacks him, and because he's hold on, he's giving him says something. Nope. New York night. No, he was too short. Hold on, you guys. It's like a whiteboard. So we flash back to the Nope. I'm missing a part. Okay, here we go. Found it. We're back. I think I got the other pages confused. I should have numbered them. As a result, Satchel moves Jackie's position to second. And I saw that as a power play, a move of positioning. Some of the comments. It was sickening the way they would always compare Babe Ruth to Gibson. Gibson was a much stronger player all around. Thanks. I'm going to touch on that too. Also, this sounds like a really good movie. I have to check it out. Yes, it's on YouTube. It's free. The truth is Jackie Robinson was a little housey, as Brother Lowe told me, which I'm gonna talk about. I did not realize that. Definitely better than Range Runners, I am sure. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna talk about. Him being a little housey. So after he got moved to second, and Satchel was like, I moved you to second. He was like, hey, brother, this your game. You're right. This my game. I sell the records. You know what I'm saying? I do the hits. I do the swings, pitches, the pitches. So one thing I learned from Brother Lowe is he was known to talk, like to speak white, like to be very like, yes, sir, and to just be, and he wasn't really hip to the current, what the young generation were on with the civil rights. He was just really just housing, like was said, very housing. So next scene, we have the commissioner and Ricky, Branch Ricky, and the commissioner is talking to Ricky like, hey, do you really want to integrate? Like, why? It's going to be riots. Like, it's really not the move. Like, we don't want to do this. Ricky was persistent. He said, like, it's going to happen. But the commissioner was like, let's just wait till the military gets integrated, because during this time, Truman was in the process of, integrating the military, because it was not integrated. It was very much segregated. So that was that scene. So the next scene that we see is we see the interaction between Satchel and his wife, Leoma, and she's played by Sally Ride Richardson. Brother Lowe, what's her name? Sally Ride Richardson. They would bring Mr. out to placate our people during the civil rights uprising. Wow, I did not know that. But yeah, so you see a scene with him and his wife, Leoma, played by Sally Ride Richardson, beautiful woman. And so then there was a reason why I said that. Oh yeah, so then he gets a phone call saying that him and Jackie are on loan out to Harrisburg. That's in New York, I believe. And so, and that they're going to leave, in the morning. Okay, in the morning. So, and one of the things I thought about when I heard loaning is like, you remember in slavery how like when slavers, not remember because we were Sally Richardson, right? Not remember, because we wasn't there, but in slave times, they would, when slavers could not afford and they needed extra money, they would lease out their slaves to other Hattiesburg, Pennsylvania, give thanks. So they would lease out their slaves to earn some, to get some more money. So that's what that kind of reminded me of. But anyway, so Satch and Jackie were leased out to Hattiesburg, and so the next day, while all the other players of the Kansas City Monarchs, I hope I said that before, Satch and Jackie played on this Kansas City Monarchs. So they're getting on the bus, and so then Jackie's told like, "Hey, you're riding with Satch." Okay, Back Alley Sally. They would lease out players in the league too, because they only had one season and there were just 8 teams. So lots of free time, which goes back to why, they played other, internationally and all that kind of stuff, because, baseball players played year round. Okay, so after Jackie's told, like, you're going to be riding with Satch, you'll be back in an hour, they still kind of like tease him, I think, because he's new. So it's like a mini haze. But their manager or their owner or the boss, I don't know. He tells them a story. He was like, hey, why you teasing him basically on being like a college boy, when he was in the military, somebody told him to give to the back of the bus, he stood up to them and he got court-martialed and won in Texas. So court-martial is like when you get in trouble and you have to, like, you're going to get penalized, and So you had to go in front of the military law, but he won in Texas back then, and so the other players like, oh, nice, like, wow, like oh, I mean, but y'all didn't know not to mess with him when he leaped on old boy. Like, come on, like, it's the quiet ones you gotta watch out for. People, they gonna learn. So, so there, and I believe so. Next, we have a scene where they are going to New York. They're driving in New York. It is Leoma, Mrs. Satchel, and it is Jackie. And so while they're driving, they stop on the side of the road where there's like a little tiny open market, and there's a little white girl. Maybe she's like 14. I'll say she's 14, but she's dirty. Like her hair is oily. She's just, just sitting there. And, so while Satch and Jackie go pick up some fruit and stuff, the woman, Leoma, is like looking in a magazine, and it's like, oh, you like the movie stars? And the little the teenage girl is like, yeah, I do. Your hair looks just like some ladies. And she was like, your hair can look like that too if you just put it up. So she puts her hand in this oily child's head. Like, there had to be lice in it. I'm telling you, there had to be lice. I even saw her do this when she was done, like, sis. So she puts her hair up and she's like, oh, look, see, you will look beautiful. And so really taking pity on this 14-year-old-ish child, because she was poor and she just was, poor, destitute looking, like, seriously. And so then Jackie and Satch come back over and they ask, and they pay for the fruit, and they go back to the car. They're going back to the car, and so Leoma asks, like, hey, small favor, can I use the bathroom? And so she was like, and the 14-year-old said it so nonchalantly, like saying hello. Right, Chief. Right. She wouldn't feed me grapes either. Like, no, just no. So Leoma asked the child, can I use your bathroom? And she was like, Daddy doesn't allow NIGG in the house. And Leoma's face was like how I took pity on you, kind of thing. But this goes to show how, even the poorest of whites were like, oh, at least I'm not black, like I'm still elite in some way. And you can see even in the shot, you'll see like Jackie, Satchel, and Leoma, like well-dressed, clean, nice car, all those things. And then you see little Sarah over here just dirty, And it was just like no big deal to her, which is like, oh, you're still not good enough to come to my house. I'll compliment you. You have such nice, pretty hair, all that kind of stuff, but you can't use my restroom, so. Claudette Colbert, white actress, don't worry about it. Oh, okay. Did she do anything else? Like, was that it? So, and that reminded me of that song, Jay-Z song, Still, no matter what you do, like, you're still, in that perspective. And so Jackie was just like, when does it end? When does it end? Okay, so then we go back to, I don't really know where this headquarters is. I'm assuming it's New York. We're going to say New York. So we go back to Ricky's world, and he's with his team of people, scouts, and they were talking about like what's going on, about the people they were researching and scouting. And so one of the guys were like, some of them play okay, but what about their character? Like they really were looking at Jackie because they were like, the boy went to college. He's smart. He was in the service. He's God-fearing. And what it had me think was like, it was according to their standards, like what they said was civilized, because, you had Satch and Joe, who were great players, but they weren't NASA, they were their own personalities. They were their own charismatic. And it was really difficult to see if you could, I guess, control them, So, and so then, it's in New York. Remember, the Dodgers give thanks. Brooklyn Dodgers. Right. So, so Steve, the young associate put on Josh, was still unable to get information on Josh, like to confirm or deny, like, hey, he was locked up in this mental institution. or not. So he just, it wasn't the report. And so as Satchel and Jackie and Leoma get to New York, you see, I paid attention to how he was received. Like Satchel, he was a celebrity, like checked in the hotel, like, hi, Mr. Page, all that greatness, right? Nobody really knows Jackie. Jackie is, brushed past, and I paid attention to that as the movie went on and like things began to change because, Satchel was a star. Everybody is a star. So at the front desk, Jackie gets a letter, for somebody and he makes a phone call. We find out that it's Ricky, the Dodgers manager. And so he goes for a meeting, and basically he was like, now what I'm about to tell you, is discretion. Don't tell nobody. It was just about how he was like, I'm scouting for the Dodgers. Like, yeah, the Brown Dodgers. He was like, no, the Brooklyn Dodgers. And I want to say this too. He was saying don't tell anybody, but the only two people Jackie would have told in this movie would have been Josh and Satch, but they already knew because there was a scene in the beginning where Satch someone just sitting in his spirit. He was like, no, they're not recruiting for the Browns. They're recruiting for the actual Dodgers, so he was like, don't tell nobody. So everybody not telling everybody what everybody already know, so there we go. What did they say? Two can keep a secret if one of them are dead. So there's that. So anyway, actually Jackie was like, nah, I don't want to do that, and Ricky's like, well, I know about your court martial and all those things. And he was like, he said something like fighting back proves a point, if he does fight back, what if I fight back? Well, fighting back proves their point, like, that you're just this person. But Ricky was like, what I know about you though? You can't fail. You can't stand to fail. And so then Jackie looks at him and was like, is this a political thing? And then Ricky was like, well, we just need 3 years to get the public's attention, so it's a little sketch, so again, his intentions was not for the good of the Black folks. Like, it was not for them to, I didn't need that page on the floor. It was not to get him to, it wasn't a beloved thing. It was for money, of course, money, I need money kind of thing. So, well, greed, success, so that night, also Jackie leaves, goes back to his room, and in crossing, he sees Steve. He sees Steve. He had a hat on, so it's kind of low, but he does see Steve's face, the young associate tasked to research Josh. Basically watch, because what Steve did was like kind of weasel his way into Josh's life to get to know him, hey, how are you? You're good and all that kind of stuff. Like, just, how they do. So that night, they go out on the town. They're in New York still, and they go out on the town, and Josh Gibson is drunk. And I think he's going through, and also I think he's going through an episode too we didn't know at that point, but with his brain tumors, So during this time, we're not really sure what's wrong with him. We just think he's like losing his mind and just drinks a lot. So then he, but when they go out into the nightclub, yes, that's what I was about to say. So they went out to the nightclub and they meet. I like this movie because they show like other stars within this too. So you have Bill Blow Robinson. So he's a tap dancer and a dancer and just an artist. If you've seen any of like the Shirley Temple movies where there's a Black man tap dancing with her, that's him. And they even joked about it too. Yeah, you made your way up dance with the Shirley Temple, So yeah, he was in there. So it reminded me of Harlem Nights when it was in the club at night, the club part, So and he also coined the word copacetic, Bilbo, and it's in the dictionary. Brother Lowe told me that. Bilbo Jangles Robinson. Got it. But yeah, he did make the word copacetic. It's in the dictionary. Um, so, um, so Josh has a fit in episode, and Grace, the gangster soldier's wife, um, takes him home. He goes home, and then you see Steve, his white shadow, there too, seeing it. And so back in the lounge bar area, you see Satch and Jackie talking. So they're talking about, just life. This is not Lord of the Rings Bilbo. It's not in the movie. Oh, Bilbo. Okay. Okay, so they're talking, and Jackie's a little just like, yeah, yeah, so I mean, which I understand, because I can imagine his characteristics and personality. He's not really like a fan of Satch's like demeanor. I think he would probably consider like shucking and jiving. But anyway, so Jackie talks about his brother. He was like, know how you saw how I was going fast today? He was like, well, you should see my brother. My brother Matt, he went to the Olympics. He came second to someone, but then he went back and won first place in the Olympics, won the gold in the 200-meter Olympics. I said Olympics like too many times. And that's a true fact, Matt Robinson. And so Satch was like, well, where's your brother now? Jackie was like, a janitor, and I was like, ooh, and that may or may not be true. I couldn't find anything either. Yes, Matt Robinson won to beat Jesse Owens. And so I couldn't find out anything about Matt Robinson, like if he was a janitor or something like that. But this probably goes to show, like, after a certain amount of time back in that day, like if you didn't have a backup plan, like you just fade back into regular schmegular. You know what I'm saying? It's not like how the Olympics are now. You get all these sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. Don't Olympians get like a stipend after? I'm not really sure. So kind of the next day, Steve didn't report what happened to Josh, like Josh acting up at the club, to Ricky, and Ricky was upset. He was like, you didn't think I was gonna find out? Like, you come on now, dude. Like, tell me what you're not telling me about Josh. And then it kind of like faded to the next scene. So the next scene is they're at a Negro League All-Star game. Yeah, so Ricky's there, and so Ricky and the coach manager of the Kansas City Monarchs is like, he's like, yeah, so you're recruiting for the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers, and Ricky's like, yup, and then this guy's name was J.O. Welks. He was like, you're recruiting for the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers, and Ricky was like, yup. Owner, give thanks. I don't know the words. Give thanks to owner. So yeah, Ricky says, yeah, I'm recruiting. He was like, no, you're not. You're recruiting for the Dodgers. My thing was like, lead with that. Like, don't be so watery about that. Lead with it. You know what I'm saying? So he was just like, I mean, hey, he was basically Ricky was looking down at what the owners are doing. He was like, they're basically ran by numbers men and racketeers. He was like, he wants to get rid of the profits of racketeers and hustlers. I will not be involved in such a league. And then Wilkes was like, you're stealing our assets and we're the racketeers. So he was basically calling like them, assets. He was like, wait, you can't throw stones. Like, you stealing our assets. So like racketeering. And so, yeah, so the teams were owned by numbers men, so that means betting on the games and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's the same game. So we are introduced to another in NBA, wow, MLB, Negro League player named Roy Campanella, who also became the sixth Black man to be drafted into the Major League Baseball. A little bit of stats about him. He debuted with the Brooklyn Dodgers, 1948, and he played until 1957. His playing career ended when he was paralyzed in an automobile accident in It's 58. Now, them cars, listen, when you got in a car with them, an accident with them cars, like, whoo, living is barely an option because them things were clunkers. Okay. So during this game, because this was like the show game, like show me what you got, because the scouts are here. Everybody knows that Ricky's there. So you have Satch there, and I'm assuming they're playing the Homestead Grays because because Josh was there, and so it was Satch against Josh, Okay, and so the swinger and the pitcher and the batter. I'm okay. So Satch strikes him out. East versus West. Give thanks. East versus West. I missed that. You knew that? I didn't. I missed it. So it was East versus West. So Josh gets struck out by Satch because he throws a whammy, and so you see Josh looking like defeated. Okay. He looks defeated, like, oh man, because everybody's trying to put their best foot forward, their best skills forward. And so I don't know how they ended up back in the locker room talking. I know it's not a halftime, so I'm assuming it was the seventh inning stretch. But anyway, Satch was in the locker room, and Ricky comes in. I believe Ricky wanted to talk to Satch wanted to talk to Ricky. And so basically Satch was like, look, I know you are actually scouting for the Dodgers. And Ricky's like, how would you know that? By the way he was saying it, it looked like Jackie told Satch. But Satch just knew. Nobody told Satch. He just had that feeling. You know what I'm saying? But it did look like Jackie said it because, he had just had the conversation with Jackie and was like, don't tell nobody. And so it just looked like Jackie said something. And so basically, but to me, it almost looked like Satch was kind of like begging to be choose. Like he really humbled. He was like, a good friend of mine told me you don't like all that showboat, and I give you me. And I was like, dude, just stay true to yourself. Don't do this. I was kind of like this watching that. I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. And so then he was just like, and then he asked, as Ricky was leaving, basically Ricky was like, we'll see, all that good stuff. And he was like, don't say anything. I'm like, y'all just stop saying that. Because everybody's singing. Everybody's singing. Everybody's telling the news. The bird's the word. Everybody knows. So what's the point of this question? Here. So he tries to put in a word for Josh too. He was like, hey, look out for my boy Josh. He's a good player, almost better than me. Don't tell him I said that. Just look out for him. And so back out on the field, it's called the field, right? They call it the field. The field. And Josh comes back and knocks a ball out of the park. It was great. It was a good moment. It was a good day for both of them. It was a really good day for them all. So then it goes to another scene, which is the political aspect again. So it's the mayor is pushing for integration, or he threatens for economic sanction. He was like, I think this is integration of the baseball team. Yes, it is the baseball team. Because they ain't integrating nothing else. Baseball first, Don't get ahead of ourselves, you know what I'm saying? So Ricky don't like this. He was like, it'll look like he caved in. I really didn't understand that part, but I guess he wanted to be first to, push the limit of integration. So he says, I will not be denied my place in history. I was like, okay, chill. We know how y'all do. You just impose, sheesh. And so his constituent, Pete, was like, are we just going to do that with just Jackie? They'll slaughter him, basically, the other white players and just everybody. And then he was like, well, what if he doesn't want to sign? Next scene, you see Jackie at the table with a whole bunch of photographers signing. And he signed October 23rd, 1945, which is ironic because he dies October 24th in 72. So almost you see that? And so a note that with the Brooklyn Dodgers, they ended up going to the World Series, and Jackie helped with that. Fun fact: one of the airports in New York City is named after this mayor, LaGuardia. Oh, that's who that is. Give thanks. All right, they don't say his name, really, do they? Give thanks. So after Jackie gets signed, everybody's a little salty about that. They're not really happy about it. They're just not really happy about it because everybody thought it was gonna be Satch. Well, Satch thought it was gonna be Satch, or Josh thought it was gonna be Josh. Because these brothers was good. And one thing I learned about from Brother Lowe is Jackie Robinson wasn't even that good of a player. He was a yes man for the man. You know what I'm saying? So he was good. He was all right. But his character, he was easily malleable, and he was just him. So Paige is sour. You see him outside reflecting like he's in an R&B movie, looking out into the distance, kind of upset, listening to the radio. And then Miss Grace's man comes home. Her husband comes home in his uniform, look just right dressed, may I add. And with his two, what's they call it? Hands, or like muscles with his two muscles. And he was like, so I've heard you like baseball games. So I'm gonna just say he eyed her Tina. Like he just like, they didn't show it, but it happened. The mayor was eye talent, so I remember. Grace's husband comes home and beats the stuffing out of her. And so Josh, having heard that Jackie got signed and he didn't, was, sad. And I can imagine emotional triggers could like intensify the brain tumor that we still don't really know he has, but we know now. But it intensifies, the effects of what's going on. So he's outside his window, like an R&B song, like, excuse me, Grace. Her light's on, but she does not come. I wouldn't either, because I wouldn't either. So now after the signing, he handled that old fashioned business. Hey, it's better than getting stoned. You're right. You're absolutely right. Because she was just flaunting out there like, yeah, he should be the first Italian mayor in New York City. Yeah, he did, Chief. Woo. Anyway, fall from Grace. Okay, Grace. Yeesh. Careful what you name your children sometimes. But okay. After signing, you now see Jackie Robinson getting the treatment of how Satchel Paige was getting, so he's arriving at hotels and they're like, Mr. Robinson, can I get your signature? And Satchel Paige is still too, but you're just seeing like now everybody knows Jackie. It went from people like, excuse me, I need his signature to like, I need yours too. I want yours first and his kind of thing. And so then, oh yeah, that's the page I need. We're back. So that's not the page I need. Anyway, so after the signing, am I missing a page? One moment. I guess I'm not. After signing his treatment, so not today. One moment, please hold. New York. New York. Let me flash back. New York. I will. Okay, I'll wait. You can read that. I'll wait. Thanks. Let's see. Political next scene signing. So I think. Oh wait. So he's getting signed. Oh yeah. Okay. So I don't have the page, but I remember. So they were at the this is what Jackie was at the hotel getting all the treatment and stuff like that. So you see Satch and Josh there, just like, just all like talking amongst each other. I mean, they feel kind of salty because average but a good player, younger, more sane. The yes man, got picked to be the Dodger, the first to be integrated into, the Dodgers, and they each thought it was them, so. Chief, I want to add something about Josh Gibson. He was actually known to be really classy. The alcohol and drugs were rumored, but not really witnessed. They hyped it up in the movie. Give thanks. Give thanks for his name and legacy. Give thanks. Okay, so yes, Jackie goes to them and like, hey, can we talk? And they were like, he was a college boy. I'm like, dang, I'm college boy now. Like, we was just cool. I was junior, now I'm college boy. Like, wow.